Hello, good day, and welcome to another calculator tutorial. Now, in this video, we will be looking at a extension to an existing dwelling. And in this case, we are looking at a building that is an original scheme house that is going to be extended at the back and the side. Now, using the building calculator, I always recommend you get the area from the area schedule. As in this case, the total building area is highlighted to include existing and the proposed. So in this case, the area is in metric and it is saying 91 square meters on the ground floor and 96 is on the first floor. So in this case, we have to do a conversion to convert from square meters to square feet, as the units required by the calculator is specifying square feet. So for that, we would multiply 91 times 10.76. That is for the ground floor. And for the first floor, we are going to calculate 96 times 10.76. So that is saying the total square footage is 2012.12. And it is giving a rough cost here based on just using the typical Jamaican scenario, this one universal rate. And that is saying that the building extension will cost about $30 million. Now, to do a comparison, we have a second sheet here that's representing the input of the calculator that is to be added in these two sections. So we are going to review and see what they come to. So the first area represented here is the ground floor, and we are going to change some of the other criteria. So I'm using the standard height. I am considering material and labor, wet works and finishes. The areas of properties within a scheme area is always less than quarter acre. We are going to consider the finished expectation to be medium. Apart from that, we are going to select the level, and in this case, it's a main level based on the drawing showing that the property is pretty much flat. And we are going to add these additional things. So in this case, this is central sewage, so we can skip over question 9. Question 10 is asking about how the building will be covered. In this case, you can use a section to see that. It's saying that the ground floor is pretty much covered by a slab. In terms of question 11, it is asking whether or not the property will need to be bushed. Most properties within these scheme areas are going to be properly maintained. So you are not going to have a situation that you have to worry about bushing. So the question would be answered with the option no. In terms of tall trees, that would be no. And the question about machinery will also be no. Question 14 is a little bit tricky in this scenario because if it's a contractor, they might seek to use a site office, but in different scenarios, they can have different outcomes. So for instance, you can have a situation that nobody actually is living at the front house, and the front house is going to be used as a storage as well as an office location. And in that case, the answer for question 14 should be no. In terms of question 15, it's asking about storage facility. In a case like which I just mentioned, you would not need to have storage facilities again. So you would say, yes, there's storage facility there. You'd say yes to there being a bathroom, and you would say, yes, there's electricity and water on site. Now, question 19 is asking about storage water tanks. In this case, again, it's going to be dependent on what you go there and see. If there's existing tank there, then the answer here should be no. Now, question 20 is asking about suspended drywall ceilings, and you can use the drawings to evaluate whether or not this is a requirement by looking at the sections, and the sections here are not showing any kind of suspended ceilings. So we would have to say no to this question. We would skip to question 21 because it would not be relevant. Question 22 is asking whether or not a contractor will be hired. That is going to be yes in this particular scenario. Question 23 is asking whether or not the approach towards the design architecturally is going to be traditional or, advanced kind of setup wherein maybe the architect is a part of the project and etc. But in this case, I'm using traditional. So basically, the architect has done the drawing, handed it over. Question 24, I'm also going to say traditional. In this case, the engineer would have done his drawing and just handed it over. So they are not physically in the project as the project go along. Now, question 25, I am going to answer that to be milestone as my consideration, and then that should give me a cost to use. So this is saying that it is going to cost about $15.9 million based on the condition that I would have used here. Therefore, I can add this cost to my Excel sheet, and it would be translating that the ground floor is costing about $16,200 per square feet. Now, without refreshing the calculator, I can change around a few variables and get the cost for the upper floor. The first one would be the area that is seen right here. We would also change the level, that is question 7 to upper. We would change question 8 to none, and we would skip over question 9. Now, the other question that needs to change is question 10 in this particular scenario, and it's asking about how the building will be covered. And based on the sections as well as the elevations, you can see that some of the building is covered by a roof and some is covered by a slab. So in this case, we would select the option that says roof and slab combined. Now, all of these questions would not need to be troubled because they are pretty much going to be the same scenario because there was no preliminary cost before, so there wouldn't be any preliminary cost now. So at this point, we can say the cost for works in this particular scenario is going to be about $14.3 million for the upper floor. Now, adding it into the Excel will also reveal a translation for the square footage, and in this case, it is saying that the square footage cost on this level is about 13,800. And thereby, if you look at the total cost and the translation is saying that the square footage cost is also different from these two. That's why, again, we say universal square footage price does not work in the real world. The square footage will vary at different aspects of the world. But that is pretty much where I'm going to leave it. Hopefully, this will help you to be guided in using the calculator. Take care.